Yo players, I'm Grant and I'm going to teach you how to cup coffees. First things first, you do not need to cup coffees to play Leaderboard. You can just brew all the coffees the same way that you do it every day at home. But if you're watching this video, you're probably a little bit curious about what cupping is, so I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's start with what is cupping. Cupping is essentially just brewing a French press without pressing it. Plain and simple. You're putting ground coffee into a vessel and you're pouring hot water on it. Boom. That's it. Cupping is the industry standardized way of tasting coffees all along the value stream. So that means that at origin, they're going to be cupping coffees. So producers and exporters, importers are going to be cupping coffees. So are roasters and directors of coffee, or anyone who's like running a shop program, as well as end users. So there is also a language that goes along with cupping, as well as a scoring system. So this is something that Josh Tarlow is going to talk about in his coaching video. So if you're really curious about that stuff, watch his video next, because he's going to tell you how to dissect all of the things that you're going to kind of be looking for when you're cupping coffees or tasting coffees. I'm just going to show you how to do it. So let's start with, the things that you're going to need to cup coffees. So you are going to need coffee, duh. So I would recommend start with maybe 2 coffees, and then you can add more and more to your table as you get more confident with the process. But start with 2 so that you can get this process down and compare the 2 coffees and see what we're talking about when we say that it helps. So get your coffees, and then I'd recommend getting the tasting cards and a pen that correlate with that coffee. It's really important when you're cupping to take as many notes as possible so that you can recall that experience afterwards. So get your coffee. You're gonna need some water. We'd recommend using the third wave water packs that we've included in the box. Then you're gonna need a way to heat that water. So get yourself a kettle. If you don't have a fancy kettle like I do, just a regular kettle that goes on a stove, like a tea kettle or something, is totally fine. You're then gonna need some vessels or cupping bowls. So cupping bowls come in all shapes and sizes. This is probably the one that you've seen before. They can also be like this, which is the ones that I use at home. But if you have like some small bowls or small coffee cups, that'll do. But the one really important thing is that they're all the same size. The last thing that you're gonna need is a cupping spoon. So this is my spoon. You don't need a spoon that matches all your outfits. A cupping spoon is essentially just a glorified soup spoon. So if you've got some soup spoons at home, just grab a bunch of those. The last things that I'll probably tell you is a few little tips to help you out when you're cupping. So try not to eat just before you cup, and especially try not to have spicy food, anything that's going to affect your palate. Also, try not to wear like cologne or perfume or scented moisturizer or something, because that will take away from the sensory experience. And yeah, have some fun with it. So the next thing that we're going to do is talk about setting up the cupping. Okay, let's set up your cupping. So the thing to remember is that consistency is key. So you're not gonna individually dial in each coffee or each bowl. You're gonna use one blanket recipe for all of the coffees. So the reason why is that you're trying to focus on the differences in the coffees. What are the coffees trying to tell you? What differences between this one and that one? So if you're doing a different brew ratio or a different recipe for each one, that's going to throw that whole process off. So just remember, do the exact same recipe for all of the coffees. Now, the recipe, what is that we're going to use? So get yourself a scale. This is going to be very, very helpful. The SCA standard recipe is 8.25 grams of coffee for 150 milliliters of water. That's in the realm of like an 18-to-1 ratio. So that means 18 grams of water for every 1 gram of coffee. For your grind setting, you're gonna go slightly finer than a French press, but slightly coarser than a filter coffee. That's the SCA standard recipe. I personally do a 17:1 ratio with a slightly finer grind. Just choose one of those recipes and stick with it. So the next thing that we're gonna do, once you weigh out these coffees, is you're gonna grind them. Now I've done some sweet, sweet TV magic and already ground them. So when you got your coffees ground, don't worry about just boiling your water just yet. For the first few times that you do a cupping, give yourself like an hour for this whole process, and take your time at every step. So with the ground coffee in front of you, start to smell it. Get your nose in there and start to pick up on what that coffee is trying to tell you, because it might actually give you some clues. Is it really fruity? Is this one super chocolatey? Is this one kind of herby? Is this one floral? Those might give you some clues as to what it actually is. So you'll notice that I have the 2 coffees in front of me, but then I also have 2 extra bowls. So the reason why is that these are like rinse bowls. So when you're tasting this coffee, you're gonna rinse in there. When you're tasting this coffee, you're gonna rinse in there. The reason why is that you don't want to influence the flavor of either of these or have any transfer of flavor. It's just going to help keep them separate, help keep them clear. So the last thing that you're going to need before you really start this whole process is make sure that you have an extra bowl with 2 extra spoons ready to go. And I'll show you why in a second. Okay, it's go time. If I mess up at any point here, it's because I only have one go at this, so I'm gonna try to nail it. If you have like an electric kettle where you can set your temperature, it's kind of up to you. I do 97 degrees Celsius. If you're just using like a regular kettle on a stove, boil your water and then take it off boil, wait like 20 or 30 seconds, and then you're gonna pour on top. So last thing that you're gonna need is make sure that you have a timer ready. So you're gonna set a timer for 4 minutes, and that is your brew time before going on to the next step. So here we go. You're gonna take your water, and when you pour it on the coffee, make sure that you wet all of the grounds. So because this bowl is 150 milliliters, I'm gonna fill it right up to the top, but for the first few times, especially if you're using like a cup or some kind of other vessel, weigh it out to make sure that you're doing the right recipe. So here we go. Thanks for your contribution, Millie. Okay, so now that your coffee is wet, fill up your other bowls with hot water as well. So you got 4 minutes, so just take your time. And then get that 3rd extra bowl that I told you about and get that ready as well. So now what you can do is smell the coffees again. Once the grounds are wet, you're gonna be able to pick up even more stuff. So when it's dry, that's called the fragrance. When it's wet, this is called the aroma. So again, just get your nose in and just smell it and go back and forth. And when you go back and forth, you can start to pick up more differences. So I did a little bit of TV magic again. So now it's been 4 minutes. So this next part's really fun. So this is called breaking the crust. So what you're gonna do is take your spoon and you're gonna gently break the crust that's formed on top of the coffees and kind of agitate everything a little bit. When you break it, get your nose in there, because that's gonna give you this waft of aroma and you're gonna be able to pick up even more stuff. So we're just gonna go down, break it, and I go 1, 2, 3. And then you're gonna wet it, and then you're gonna go on to your next one. So here we go. Smells like coffee. And so you'll notice how I didn't transfer between these two. So So the next thing you're gonna do, this is gonna be a little bit hard with this angle, you're gonna basically skim all of the little floaties that are still on top off of the coffee. So you'll notice that most of the coffee is floated down to the bottom, but you still have a little bit on top, and you don't want to be slurping that. So what you can do, if you do have 2 spoons, you can try to do the fancy technique where you kind of scoop it like that, and then you're going to get rid of it. So we're going to scoop, and we're probably going to spill everywhere. Scoop. And now, this is kind of your waste one. So you can just move that aside, and then this is what you're gonna be left with to taste the coffees. So I'm gonna pause the video again because it's still gonna be a little bit too hot to drink, and you don't wanna burn your palate. So once you've done this, wait like another 2 or 3 minutes, so your total brew time is gonna be at about 8 minutes, and then you're gonna start to taste them. Okay, so now the coffees have finally cooled down enough that we can actually drink them. This is a really cool thing about coffee, is that when it's really hot, it just kind of tastes like hot water and like someone sprayed flavor on it. So not a super great experience, but as it cools down, you start to pick up all those beautiful flavors in the cup. So this is gonna be a really fun thing for you to experience as you're tasting them. So now, to do the fancy slurp. If you've ever been to a wine tasting before, you know how you aspirate and you aerate the wine as you drink it, so you slurp it like. There's a couple reasons why you want to do that same thing with coffee. One is that you're going to cool it down so that you don't burn your tongue, but the second is that you're actually going to spray your entire palate. So all of our palates have different flavor receptors on different parts of your tongue. So if you're spraying the coffee, you're going to be able to pick up everything. A really fun thing that you'll notice is with higher acid coffees, it's going to kind of like tickle the sides of your cheeks, and that's your acid receptors or your sour receptors. So if you cough when you're doing this, or like you almost choke, it's totally normal. First time that I ever did a cupping, I completely embarrassed myself and spat coffee everywhere. So it's probably good to do this on your own the first couple times before you start to do it with other people. But don't be embarrassed, everybody does it. So you're gonna just go, and that's it. And then you're gonna go on to your next one. So you're just gonna slurp, and then drink. So when you've slurped it into your mouth, kind of swish it around a little bit, and then you can either spit the coffee or you can continue to drink it. If you're tasting like 8 coffees at the same time, I would highly recommend to spit the coffees, because otherwise you're gonna be very, very jacked on caffeine. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So from here on out, this is all you. Just go back and forth between the coffees, taking notes the whole time, and experience them to their full potential, I guess. And yeah. Enjoy, and good luck.